Welcome to Actually Controller, the podcast that is actually Controller, and we are actually in control of everything you are hearing right now. I'm so very sorry.
Hello, welcome back to Actually Controller. This is
Steve.
And this is,
Well, you're Jeff, but I'm Chad.
and this is,
Chris.
Hi!
and this is me. I'm Jeffrey. Welcome back.
Welcome back, everybody. So we're kind of mulling over this one, and Chad kind of said something that sparked a point for me and everything, and he goes,
started it.
maybe we should talk about what's going on currently in, the music industry right now.
Is there any big music news going on?
And this isn't like necessarily this is just now happening or anything like that, but it's kind of been
going on for a while.
Yeah, but it's been kind of boiling up to where it's now kind of hit a fever point, in my opinion, in the past year or so, where I'm seeing, and I'm all for the festival that kind of taps into the nostalgia. Except it's almost seemed that it's gotten to a pretty ridiculous point now.
Yeah,
like
so-
the Sick New World Festival.
They're getting huge.
Yeah, that just happened out in Vegas.
In Vegas, yeah.
I saw that rundown come out months ago, and I was like, that looks awesome. Because for tapping into the nostalgic late 90s, early 2000 kid and everything like that, it had pretty much every band that you would want to see that you followed at that point.
In case you haven't noticed, we like a little bit of new metal here.
Just a little bit.
Just a little.
Just a little bit.
We might be slightly influenced.
I mean, by
Maybe.
Grunge. Probably.
Yes, definitely.
By grunge.
By grunge. Legitimately, we're probably a grunge band. But, legitimately.
But
So Steve, your position is that you're down with festivals? You like the whole new festival push or no?
no, I because I get from a logistics standpoint and I get from a financial standpoint, for a lot of bands nowadays with the touring costs, with how much bus cost is and drivers and fuel, everything has gone up exponentially, that a lot of bands cannot do the tour thing. They still want to try to get out there, do some live shows, though, and still give their fan base an opportunity to see them, and they don't know how to do that by, if they can't get out there to do the tour because it's too financially taxing for them.
Right.
So they're trying to get onto these festivals to at least give some of these fans an opportunity to see them,
at
except
a massive pay cut to themselves, as well as least amount of time that they might possibly have on stage, possibly getting passed over for a second or a third stage.
Yeah, and so I get it and I sympathize, but at the same time, these festivals, the promotion groups that are attached to it, I feel have gotten too unwieldy with their expectations of how this is supposed to go, because I have yet to hear of any of these big festivals going off correctly. All of them have overloaded all of the stages, all of the acts. Sick New World, literally, unless you're on stage one, I have heard nothing but reports of, unless you're on stage one, every band that was on a 25-minute set got 10 minutes shaved off of their set.
Yeah, well,
didn't have any of the stage monitors going.
That was Sick New World, though, because there's been some good death metal shows out of Ohio and Michigan that have been
Is that a newer festival?
They think this is year one. This might be year two, and I get that.
So there's probably some logistical knots.
Right.
It's probably.
I mean,
but that's where I'm getting at with the promoters and everything like that. That this festival fever is hitting fever pitch, where every big promotion group is wanting to. Well, we're not going to back tours right now. We're just going to try to corral as many bands as we can onto 1 or 2 day.
Well, yeah. And the attitude is it's a lot easier to move a ticket if you've got 30 bands.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I get that.
And I look at those lineups and I'm like, I want to see them, and them.
Right, yeah. But
then
reality,
I've got these people on day two. I'm like, well, I want to see them, them.
And then the reality, I saw a couple of the videos for Sick New World specifically, and how they had stage, the offset stage, not the main stage set up. And it was literally back to back. There were videos of people who were standing in between the two stages and getting a wash of all three stages.
Yes. Yeah.
Because
they were running bands at the same time.
At the same time.
You're not.
Yeah.
That's not unusual
That-
if you have the space for it.
And that wasn't
This was
even
a large
unusual.
parking lot that
yeah,
they.
it does not sound like they have space for it.
That's-
I attended.
Lollapalooza was like that.
Goodness, I don't remember what it was called. It was one of the Monster Fests back in 2012 or whatever.
Right.
But they had a main stage that didn't even start until 4, and they had 2 side stages out in the parking lot.
Mhm.
But the side stages literally just went in tandem, like stage
Yeah,
1
which
is
stage
fine.
two,
That's
and,
normal.
and that's the way it
But-
should run.
Yeah.
The headliners for those 2 stages were playing while the opener of the main stage went on.
Yeah.
So that at that point, you would decide if you're going to go to the main stage and watch the opener,
And see,
or
that's
stay
the
in the parking lot.
difficulty I have.
But
with
there was
most
no wash
festivals.
because there was separation. There was actually a natural wall, not a wall, but a sound barrier.
Right. And then no, and that's fine, and I have no problem with that because you got to like figure out the logistics of who's going to be playing when and all that stuff, and sometimes you have to run multiple stages at the same time. But if it is one large parking lot, multiple stages in one spot, wash is going to happen, and you have headliners and secondary quote unquote acts
Yeah.
going at the same time, and like you pointed out, they're getting wash from multiple stages
Yeah.
as a listener.
Let's talk
Now,
about-
so
what do
here's
you guys constituting a festival? Like just because it has the name fest or
No.
festival? in it?
no. If it's like 2 to 3 days, you've got more than one stage. You've got
I went to a show that was called X Fest in Dayton. There
Yeah.
were 10 bands, but it was 2 stages,
Mhm.
and they were both stages were the opposite end of this like horse track.
Yeah, and that's
and
fine.
they didn't compete, and it was literally like band 1 would play,
Uh-huh,
at
and then
stage
the
A,
next band.
and then 5 minutes after they're done, band 2 would play at stage B.
Which-
so you could
That's
see
totally
people
fine.
walking
Which
back
we
and forth.
performed a festival
Yeah,
like
we
that.
were in Metal Fest up in Detroit,
Yeah.
and it was a 2-stage venue.
Yeah.
and it was a
Back and
rotating stage where like our stage room would finish, and then the next stage room would go, and it was just a wall separating, and then the crowd would just rotate between the stages.
They just
And
bounced
so
back and forth.
those I'm fine with, and those
Yeah.
I'm not even saying that it wasn't a fest, but the type of festival that I'm thinking of that I feel like has gotten
You're
a little
thinking of
unruly.
the bomb out.
Yeah,
fest.
the-
Those
like-
big 4-dayers.
Well, and that's the thing is
600 bands listed.
Well, and that's the problem is a lot of these big ones haven't even like given themselves a multi-day. Like Sick New World was a 1-day festival.
Yeah.
They crammed almost 100 bands
Almost.
into
Yeah,
one
See, that's-
day.
that's a
Or
logistic
into
thing.
3
That's
stages,
That's
too.
somebody was trying to get the most bang for their buck.
Exactly, but
And
that's
that's
the
too-
way that a lot of these new festivals
But to
are
Chad's
being
point,
created.
there are people out there that are like, I want to see this. You create. Let's go back to the dad itinerary, shall
Yeah.
we?
Yeah.
You create your own. Like once it's released, you're like, okay, out of these 100 bands, I want to see 30 of them.
Yeah.
I might get to see 20 of them. Now, is this worth it? So,
Agree,
Well, and so-
they know that, and that's the thing. The promoters know that, and that's why they're
Exactly.
doing it that way. And
And-
I get that.
So I think also because I used to do a little bit of booking with weird places, like small venues and stuff like that, that a lot of what I've seen has been a lot of not confidence. They'll have shows that they think like normally would pop off, and they would have no problem packing.
so you're saying that at this point it's insurance.
I
You wanna make
think
sure
I
that-
think that it is. I think that is
you
why
might not
there
wanna
are
see
so
bands
many of
A,
these.
D, G, but you're going to go see bands B, C, F.
Exactly, and then the promoter is covered. He can say, "Hey, we packed it out," and
Yep.
that's on his resume. And it's on his resume during a time period where one-off shows, unless you're like a huge liner,
Right.
aren't really doing as well as what they were just 3 years ago before.
And I can't remember the name of the festival. Nick Nocturnal, YouTuber, had just done a kind of recap of this festival. It was over in the UK. The promoter literally a week after came out with a non-prompted apology letter and stating, "We'll do this better." This was year like 5 or 6
Yeah.
of this festival. They purposefully oversold the tickets. Not by like 20, 30. They oversold the tickets by in the neighborhood of 500 to 600.
See, and that's where I have
And
problems
they
with
ended
it,
up
man.
screwing the whole thing to where nobody could get parking. Highways were completely blocked with people getting out of their cars and
That's- I
leaving
think
their
that's them
vehicles.
Not anticipating, but hoping that 500 or 600 people
Well,
would
and
be no shows.
and not
Because
anticipating.
some of these
what
are
happened,
planned, like
actually.
for instance, the Sonic Collision or not Sonic Collision, Sonic Temple.
Yeah.
That's in May, but they start announcing they don't start announcing bands till like February, but they start announcing tiered ticket packages back in like October, November.
Oh yeah, well, same with
you're
Blue
way
Ridge.
out. You're way out at that point. And so people are like, yeah, I want to go to this festival. And like, I know it's going to be a good lineup regardless of who it is. As a consumer, I'm confident in buying my ticket. 7 months later, something happens and I can't go.
And I gotta say this real quick: the reason why festivals are doing better is because a lot of what was grandfathered in mom and pop groups that would help older festivals go off don't exist the same way they do.
Right.
And so having a lineup that's 100+ of bands you already heard of is a lot easier to sell to corporate backing if you need to be able to carry.
Oh yeah, no, and I totally get it. Again,
and they're trying to build a base, because before everything went down with the sneeze disease, that kept us all like hidden for like a couple of years. There was always a bank of money most of these promoters were sitting on. That bank got ate up.
Yes.
So they're trying right now to rebuild that to a certain regard. So these next few years are going to be a little weird when it comes to like what the promotion groups and
Steve's
production
point,
groups.
I think it's more because they're overbooking. And they're booking all these bands because it's insurance.
Yes.
And those mom and pop bands do get to play those. They're usually playing the second or third stage at noon or 1 in the afternoon.
No, I'm talking mom and pop.
No, the promotion groups.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah, and I get that, but the other
right
part
now
that
everybody's scrambling to step on each other's neck to be bigger.
Well, it's not even that as much. Those mom and pops felt scared during all the 2020 stuff, understandably.
Yeah.
And that's why when Live Nation came in, because they were the only ones big enough to survive all of that,
and
they were like, hey, I get that you're scared. How about we just buy out your contracts?
Well, and see, that's
what's happened with a lot of those.
That's the thing with Live Nation, though they brought out those contracts and they could project that they would make money. Now they actually got to make that money, and rather than worrying about us, the people who are buying the ticket. Because on the front end, it looks like they're making all our money off of us. They're not. They're making their money off of all the different corporate heads and letterheads they're putting on everything they're doing. So what they're doing right now, in my opinion, I don't know this for a fact. I'm not a CEO of some Live Nation or other like major festival buyer or whatever. But it is to make that base again that they can say, yeah, we can do that. Where they've gone 2+ years where they were unable to do that without any sort of like safety net. That's why a lot of these groups have disappeared.
No, and I know the safety net being gone is why a lot of them disappeared.
So like getting on with a group that's attached with Pepsi, or getting on with a group that has a different revenue source other than whether or not you can trust. Whether or not Spirit Box is going to bring it, which they always do, but whatever.
Yeah, no, I
think
get
these festivals ultimately are becoming the juggernauts they are is because of supply and demand. People are looking for the most bang for. As a consumer, they're looking for the most bang for the buck.
Yeah, and there's that.
You
side
can go
of it
see a show in our local Coliseum for $45, $50.
Yeah,
you get 3-4 bands. Maybe the opening band is somebody you've heard of. Maybe it's a tour package that the owner is like, let's bring these on, or the record label or whoever. But man, for $120, you're going to be able to spend your day watching, if you plan it right.
Right. And
15 to 25 bands.
I would agree with that, except most of these festivals, I'm not trying to pick on Sick New World, because this is not just them.
Yeah.
Because there's been multiple ones that I've heard of. There's another one that was supposed to be going over in Ohio, and the promoter that nobody had ever heard of was booking all these major ones. They finally found the GPS location of where the quote-unquote festival field was at. It was a back grass field of a Sunoco gas station.
I think I saw that.
That was a total of like 2 acres large.
Yeah, and
that's it.
They're trying to pack
logistics
like 2,000.
So no logistics for parking or anything like that. But
when we take this conversation, we need to talk about you're not talking about the tried and true Sonic. Sonic Temple.
I'm not talking about the Lollapaloozas, Blue Ridges. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about
that are the mom and pops that have popped out.
I'm talking about the new Flash. Yeah, I'm talking about the new Flash in the Pan ones.
Yeah.
Where They maybe have existed for 1 year, most likely haven't. All of a sudden, you have promoters you've never heard of, you have a festival name you've never heard of, and all of a sudden you're getting 100 to 300 bands listed on it.
Sound guys that have never sat in front of the soundboard.
Well, that was
running.
another problem that they were stating with the Sick New World one. All the stage 2 and 3, they stated that they could not acquire, due to all of the other work going on in Vegas at that time, enough sound guys to actually run everything. So they were getting anybody that stated that they could do the job.
So Body Count, I watched the video.
Oh, Body Count was a horrendous
so
mess.
Body Count, Ice-T's on stage just asking for his lead guitarist to come through the mains.
Yeah, front of house.
Yeah, and he's like, they got 20 minutes to play, and he spends at least 5 minutes trying to get just his lead guitar to be audible to the audience.
Yeah, and he keeps asking, he goes, do you guys hear him yet? And he's just playing. They're like, no. He's like, cool.
Hey, but
Can we get that to happen?
He knows he has a little under 20 minutes to play. So it's like they played their first song hoping it would get good. It didn't get good. He spent the extra 5 minutes. It still didn't get good. I felt so bad, man.
And that was like one of at least 6 bands that I saw video
Did you ever
of.
find out what the issue was at the point?
It was just literally the sound guys didn't understand routing.
Yeah,
they didn't know how to use the equipment because none of them were efficient enough.
It sounds like, from what I could gather, it sounded like...
Where's Adam when you need him?
Yeah.
It sounded like they had a front of house crew for part of the band that was up right before, and then that either they left, they quit, which is possible. I mean, that's a lot of pressure.
That's how you got your job at Skeletons.
I mean, honestly.
We were mid-show when the guy quit on us.
And I'm like, all right, we'll punk rock this out. And we ended up finishing the show. I ran sound for the show that I was
you were
playing.
up there, and then me and Brandon were trying to figure out what everything was patched to.
Yeah, and we were just back and forth. All right, I'm on channel 2, speaking a microphone. Tell me where I'm at.
Because we brought a band in from, I think they were
Michigan, Lofted.
No, it wasn't Lofted. It was a band that we were trying to get in that forever. I think that was out for Virginia or something like that.
Yeah, and so there was no way we were not going to not
we reached
play.
out to them?
No, I haven't.
It's all good.
I don't think they're around anymore, but
it's been years.
Either way, though, it's with that type of a festival, the part that aggravates me is I get from a consumer standpoint that it sounds good, but they already showed the average cost if you were to just get a day pass and have to travel to Vegas. If you had to get accommodations, you had to get travel, like a plane ticket.
Oh, man, you've blown your wad.
An Uber.
Yeah.
And then the day ticket. A person was in for over $1,100.
Easily.
For the one day.
Especially in Vegas.
To maybe see the 30-some bands that you were wanting to see and everything. So it kind of boils down because they did state that the food was taken care of, the facilities were taken care of, which is rare for a lot of these festivals
and
nowadays.
That is one thing I'm really curious about with, I've never done a multi-day festival that I've actually...
I have. I think it's great.
Ever since the chaos of the pay-per-view rendition of what I watched of Woodstock 99.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Like how we burnt down Woodstock.
Yeah.
How we ruined everything good.
Well, no, it was a lot of frustration on the concert goers because food prices got jacked up way beyond what they should have been. How good are regulations on this?
Well,
they're not. That's the biggest problem with a lot of these festivals. There is no regulation.
With the promotion side of it too, is their interest is in making enough money to be able to do something like that again. So their focus it's not so much in the show that's happening, as sad as that is. It's in the deals that they're cutting and how much money at the end of the day they're making. Because they're not invested in your favorite band. They're not invested in whether or not you're hearing them at the best.
No, not at all. And no promotion group ultimately cares how good a band sounded that night.
Yeah.
Well, and it's a cash grab again.
Yeah. And that's at the end of the day,
that's the
they're
part
trying to make it successful enough
to make money
that
to
people
do
are
it
going to come
again.
back.
Yeah.
There's going to be people who have bad experience, I'm not going to go back to that. But there's going to be other people I had a great time. I can't wait for next year.
Yeah. The only problem, and that's why I'm bringing up these newer festivals, is because I feel like too many of them and enough people now that we're giving these new festivals a try because they were wanting to see those 20 or 30 bands and stuff like that, are now going, okay, there's another one that completely dropped the ball. There's another one that dropped the ball. Okay, that one has enough bands. I'm going to go give that one a try. That one dropped the ball on me. I'm not giving any of these other new festivals a go, and then all of a sudden we're in another pinch of not having a home for a lot of these bands that aren't getting on Blue Ridge, aren't getting onto Lollapalooza, aren't getting onto any of the big tried and true festivals.
See, here's the thing about it,
to go, and they can't afford to tour then.
So a lot of people that I'd heard got kind of sick of Lollapalooza that I knew personally, because it went from being more like a college underground thing where it was like, dude, you can't hear these bands anywhere else.
Right.
To literally, like, turn on your radio, that's the Lollapalooza lineup.
Well, I saw Tool at Lollapalooza.
Exactly. Like, that, again, back when it was more about, like, the bands that you couldn't hear otherwise, and then they blew up afterward. That was what you wanted out of a good festival.
See, that's what I liked about the year I went to Rock on the Range. It was a good mix. So you had some bands that, not that you couldn't hear them elsewhere, but that they wouldn't generally come to our area otherwise.
But it was the same with Ozfest and Vans and all that. Warped Tour did the same thing.
My first experience with Mushroom Head was second stage at Ozfest.
Well, and I guess what I'm getting at, my point is, though, is that we're going through that cycle again. Like, we were younger and we were excited because we weren't involved in the scene in the same way we are now.
Right.
But even in that, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're welcome.
I can't watch the show the same way now.
I know.
Yeah, like, hey,
he was whining the whole time at Bad Omens.
I mean, that's fair. I feel it. Were the lights good?
Yeah.
I mean, were they good? Were they good?
Oh yeah, they had a good light show.
I mean, like, I expect
the video show too.
I
they ran
expect
full
Bad Omens to do an amazing job.
It sounded
honestly,
crisp and clean. It just sounded
too crisp and clean.
It sounded phoned in.
But I think we're going to see a lot of fly-by-night guys come through this next year into through this summer, and then the good promotion groups, the guys that know what's up, are going to kind of bubble to the top. And then we're going to get our new replay, because we're not doing Ozfest anymore. You know what I mean? We're not doing, like, Lollapalooza.
We're not doing Vans.
Yeah,
we're not doing the Warped.
Gone.
Yeah, the Warped Tour stuff is all gone.
Yeah, so there's going to be, everybody is scrambling right now to figure out who that replacement is going to be for the summertime. And right now they're in the veins of, we got to prove that it's worth it.
No, and I get that. It's more of a, I guess, for me, my frustration comes less of the growing pains portion, and it's more coming from the actual consumer standpoint. For me personally, I really did for a minute, because we have the Allegiant flights that go direct from here to Vegas. I did genuinely for a minute doing the Sick New World thing. Like, there's enough bands.
As it got about to blow.
There's the 2030 that I'm like, I don't remember the last time. I can't tell you. I never got a chance to see Orgy back in the day because they never routed through here. It was.
I saw them at the Edge Fest thing. They were here with.
Okay, so but still, that would have been 20 plus years ago.
I'm sorry, I'm old.
I'm there with you too. But
you mean
either way,
System of a Down, you can only see them on the West Coast now.
Yeah.
Well, and then you got Cold Chamber.
Yeah.
They hadn't been through here since they were on their last album.
The fact that they played.
Yeah, Cold Chamber was on that festival and everything, and then I'm like, cool. And then I'm looking, and then there was
Kitty.
You had Kitty on there. You had Ministry on there. You had KMFDM.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I mean, you had a lot of bands that have not.
MDF&K.
Yeah, well, that was their.
I know.
Yeah, okay. So, just making sure. So it's more one of those.
We know the lore here. It's all good.
So it's more one of those. There was a genuine moment of me going, okay, can I pull this off? Can I get out there? Because it would, on paper, there's enough for me to want to be out there and everything like that. But because of so many of these other one-off festivals that haven't gotten any traction yet, they haven't, really done enough to have enough years or have enough bands, have a good thing to say about them.
Yeah.
I was going, man, that could I do it? Probably. Do I have $1,100 to go on a hope and a prayer?
Probably not.
That this is going to go well and I'm going to get to have the experience I'm wanting? No, I don't.
But then again, That's all a part of the experience.
Also, there's something that's up. Okay, look, I went to hello Moto.
Yep.
Hello, Moto.
I did go to like quite a few shows at Deer Creek when it was still Deer
Yep.
Creek.
It will always be Deer Creek.
You know, and there were it sucked because there was no shade. And that you know, it's pretty bad in Indiana when there's no shade. But man, it's a whole nother vehicle when you're in the desert of Nevada.
Vegas. That was a parking lot. It was literally a parking lot that they set 3 stages up in.
So,
and there was no shade
if
tents.
festivals be the way of the walk, let's start doing it in places with nice shady trees, can we?
Or bare minimum rent a whole bunch of tents.
Yeah, you know.
So you were talking. You had mentioned how much you would have to, how much coin you would have to drop to do that. And I was just thinking about the fact that I have just gotten back from California, and the drive to Vegas for anybody in the major cities in Cali isn't
like
that bad. So
2
you're
hour.
talking about a super popular state.
Yeah.
Like, let's make the little road trip over to Vegas. It's not going to cost those people $1,100.
Right.
No,
yeah.
and you are right. If for the LA person,
and then to be fair, to even live in that area,
But you can't take that tour and drop it in central Indiana or even most of the eastern seaboard and be like, we're going to pull all these numbers from these people.
This is
because
true.
On a census population standpoint, those people aren't going to drive in droves to watch the show.
Yeah.
Depends on the bands.
well, and then
don't know. That's why none of those major festivals are on the eastern.
Yeah.
There's no New England festival.
No.
Well, I mean, there was one.
I mean, you got the North Carolina, you got Blue Ridge.
Even
you used to have the Woodstock.
Louder Than Life is in Kentucky.
We burned it
that
down.
is success and failure based on weather alone. Like we're talking about weather.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, and I will give you that one. And I get from a logistics standpoint, Vegas makes sense for the dry climate. You can pretty much guarantee that if you got an outdoor festival, you're probably going to be fine as far as the weather.
Or something.
But and I get that, yes, if you're in LA, but the average, and I'm not trying to like knock us, the majority of people that were into that type of music.
We're in the Midwest.
No, not
Don't
even
you
necessarily.
do it.
No, I
Don't you
wasn't
do
even
it.
going to do that. It was.
Don't
No, I'm going
He's
to say.
about to say it.
No, I wasn't going to say the Midwest part. I was going to say
Don't.
the reality is that the
you-
majority of the people that were into that type of
Don't,
music
don't,
when it
don't.
happened,
Don't.
we haven't been able to get the greatest of jobs.
Oh.
We haven't been able to make that type of money to be able to afford that type of a ticket.
He's trying to
So,
say we're poor.
I am. I mean, because especially if you are living in the LA area,
That's true.
where your cost of living out there is so much higher.
Gas prices.
Yeah,
my
No,
your
man,
cost of living is just so much higher out in LA. To be able to say, I have a $2,000 a month rent, let me justify a $300 ticket to a one-day festival.
We looked up some homes.
I mean, legitimately,
Seriously, they are
you're
expensive.
already paying $2,000 a month for rent, so
Yeah,
you're
but
justifying things
where-
You're
like,
working to
differently.
live.
Yeah,
Yeah, but you don't have the time to take off.
That's,
I mean, that's
that was
fair.
dude. So we. Not to.
I've
not
got
to really
I've
talk
got
about my
some
vacation, but
friends.
We were walking the Pacific Coast, and at one point, I picked out a house, like one of the smaller houses.
Yeah.
And it was like a $3.5 million home.
Yeah,
my kids were
3
like, what? I'm like, Zillow, which isn't a reliable source, but still.
yeah.
Reliable enough.
Was saying $11,000.
We did that in Cleveland.
Your monthly mortgage would be $11,000, and I'm like, to have the job to afford that, you probably don't have the social life to afford that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you're too busy trying to make sure you keep that job.
Dude,
Yeah.
it's like my sister and hers. Her
But-
house is ridiculous.
So, yes, I get your argument of the populous standpoint where you're closer to larger populous centers and everything like that with Vegas, LA,
But the
San
people
Diego.
who are going to be dropping the cash.
Yeah, the people that are going to be dropping the cash and the people that have that type of money aren't probably going to the festival, and the people that want to go to that festival don't have that time and that money to go to it. So it's that catch-22. So it's one of those, I get that we don't really have that on the East Coast, but it's one of those, is this the way that we're all as consumer comfortable with going? Because I get that you don't get as much bang for the buck on the tour because you only have the 2-3 bands or something like that coming through.
Well,
but
even talking about Bad Omens, that was
Yeah.
a $35 ticket, $40 ticket.
yeah, but
bands.
at the end of the day, 2 of the 3 bands that were on that show, for me, put on a hell of a show, and I enjoyed and felt like I got my money's worth.
So-
and there was no tech issue
Also-
to where all of a sudden somebody that's on a 20-minute set had half of their set cut off.
And you get that with any of the large festivals. The more bands you're bringing in, the more opportunity for tech issues.
Yes.
The more logistics become a problem. Even just a simple, like we talk about getting on off stage, simple stage flips become an issue. One band decides they want to take their sweet time tearing the drums down on the riser instead of throw and go. That doesn't work in a festival setting, but it definitely slows down the entire day because when you lose time for any of these issues, the only way to make it back is to cut someone's set.
Yes.
It's the only way to make it back.
Though, a lot of these labels that are directly affiliated with the bands that were involved in that made bank off of it. Because even
they had it all in up front.
Yeah, well, exactly. And if they're like, they might normally send, like, say they have 3 bands on one stage. Normally they'd send one team to run all 3 bands. This time around it was not that way because everybody got paid up front.
Yep.
So they're like, yeah, we're sending literally 3 teams.
Yep.
Because they're all getting paid because we're getting paid.
Yep.
And that is like, again, I put it down on the level of I'm not a big fan of the festival push, but I get why it's happening.
Well, and I want to clarify yet again for anybody who didn't really hear it earlier on. I'm not talking about festivals as a broad stroke and everything like that. Like when we were at Metal in the Mountains Fest and everything like that. That's one day off, but everything was staggered to accommodate the amount of time that was needed for stage flips, and there was a right amount of hands.
Yep.
Everything was already accommodated.
I loved their 2-wheeled drum riser.
Dude, that riser, that was a pretty good idea.
That was smooth. It was a good run.
You could tell that they've done this enough years. There was consideration and there was passion behind everything that was happening.
For those of you thinking of starting up a festival,
and they're
put the drums on risers and have 2 of these
castered risers.
And their restroom facility.
Oh yeah, that was pretty amazing.
Pristine restroom facility.
Yeah, and so it's not that this is an overall anything that has the word festival attached to it.
No, I
don't want it to be conceived that way. It's the fly-by-night mega fest.
It's the pop-up mega fest. It's the the all of a sudden out of nowhere we have this and there's a month out and literally nobody.
Going back to Vegas, and I pardon me, but I don't remember. But it's the one that had all the pop punk bands, the Blink-182s, the Paramores. That popped up. It was last year, but when it first started hitting social media, everybody's like, "This can't be true. This can't be true."
Well, and that's about when this mega fest started.
There's no way this can be true. And when it became true, everybody's like, "Holy shit! Let's get tickets." People were dropping big bank on it to go out there. And then one of the logistics they didn't plan on was the dry heat and the wind.
Yep.
And so this, what was it, 2-day festival ended up becoming 1 day because they had to cancel one of the days.
Yeah, they had to.
This year, I think they said, okay, we're going to do it a 2-day festival, but day 1 and day 2 will be identical. So that way you could attend either one. You're not missing anything.
And I think that's a good idea because
there is a learning curve. So I think these pop-up ones, if they're not learning from them, then that is an issue.
Yeah.
So going back to Metal in the Mountains, they've learned, like, if you're going to swap out drum sets, you got to just put whoever's performing is on a drum riser. You move that riser forward, roll it out of the way, and you move the next kit up there and just plug and play with the snake. You're good to go.
And really having enough space to do the trade over off the side.
Oh yeah, they had an amazing
amazing
side stage.
Yeah,
too.
Yeah, that was amazing. And so it's not if the word fest is attached to it. This is a very specific thing I'm talking about.
So like with Metal in the Mountains, unlike a lot of the other festivals we were just discussing, they have people who have been grandfathered into this position that they play with the running of the festival. All these others have yet to have it. It just
seemed like that team that worked that day, and it was a 1 day, but that team genuinely enjoyed the entertainment value that was.
Yeah, well, and they were
and they had passion for it.
Yeah, they were invested.
Because you had mentioned like a lot of it is a cash grab. And when a lot of those promoters and bands are literally just doing it for exposure and the money, then you lose that the passion behind making sure everything does work, and it becomes a job.
Right.
Job. I hate it when that happens.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know, man. I think that does it. Down in the comments below, let us know. Do you prefer regular? Well, I hate to say regular. Do you prefer 2 to 3 band bills, or do you prefer the festival style bill? If you do, why and why not? Or...
Well, and also to clarify for me personally, I would like to get this clarification. If you prefer the festival, do you prefer these brand new mega festivals? Am I kind of just the oddball out and everything where I'm not really into this, 100 to 300 band?
Right. Give us feedback.
1 to 2 day bill, or are you more into the 2-day festival that only has 30, 40 bands onto it?
Right.
Yeah.
Also, click and share our Patreon.
Yes. Check
That's
out our
help
Patreon.
us. Speaking of festivals and concerts, that will help fund our upcoming tour.
And keep an eyeball out, as we will have more information coming about the upcoming EPs and whatnot. So
yes, we got all that still working and everything, and by this point, you've already been in and out of the studio for all the keys, and
it went really well, I hope.
Yeah. And hopefully we are, fingers crossed, we're in the thick of vocal recording at this point.
At this point. Ooh. Good job, Bob.
Yep, and you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Way to go.
All right, so we love your guts, and thank you so much for joining us again. We will see you next time.
Later. Thank you for listening to Actually Controller. If you liked what you heard, please consider following us on all our socials. You can easily find us on all the different platforms by going to linktree/controller33 or scan the QR code if you are watching the video version of this episode. Thank you.